you can look at those things that were hurtful and flip that around and say, what does this mean that I value in my relationships? What does this mean that my expectations are in my relationships? And that is a beautiful way of finding the silver lining in the pain. It's a beautiful way to see the light in the wound, because you can move forward with that light and leave that wound behind and allow it to scab over so it doesn't hurt anymore. Hello and welcome to the Unlock Lab. I'm your host, Tosca DiMatteo. Today is a big topic, and I'll be honest, it's a bit of a heavy one, but I think it has the power to change some things for you. Today, I'm talking about healing relationships requires no apologies. What this episode is really all about is about recognizing that you have the power to heal yourself from relationships that have been tough, that have no resolution. And a lot of time, the reason why we don't have the resolution is because either the other person isn't capable, able, or ready to come to the table with what it is you need to hear to find that repair and that resolve. I want you to know that you can heal from your past. You can let go of those people that hurt you, that disappointed you, that harmed you, without them being a part of your healing process. Waiting for that day to come where you're going to get an apology is a waste of your time. So in today's episode, you're going to hear some tips, some ideas, some mindset shifts so that you can find more peace and ease with those relationships that are weighing heavy on your heart. I'm going to dive deep into this topic. But before I do, I just want to say welcome if you're new here. I am the founder of Tosca Coaching and Consulting, and I help leaders in their career trajectories. I help leaders become more heart-led and more fulfilled in their career by getting at the root of what is holding you back from reaching your goals. If you want to learn more about my speaking, about my masterclass facilitation, or my one-on-one coaching engagements, please visit CoachTosca.com. I would be honored to help you get to where you want to be, especially as we are on the verge of a new year. Now is a great time to engage me and get things on calendar so you can start that new year feeling freaking amazing. All right, let me jump in to this topic. I cannot tell you how many relationships I have had to heal from on my own, in my own process, with my own thoughts, my own actions, and my own modalities that didn't require anybody else showing up to the table but myself. And I'm so passionate about you knowing that this is possible, that you don't need apologies, that you don't need somebody to validate your feelings. You get to heal from relationships and situations with yourself. And I'm not saying, community support isn't helpful. You know me, I'm here like, yes, get the support, get the coach, get the therapist, all the things. So, but what I am saying is that whatever those choices are that you make to find healing, whether that's, with support, either way, you can find that way forward yourself, and you don't need some other person to apologize for you to find resolve and find a path forward. Sometimes we can get stuck on this idea of wanting somebody to apologize. In my experience, don't hold your breath for that because likely if the person has hurt you, disappointed you, they are showing you who they are and what they're capable of. And they are likely not capable of apologizing or even seeing that that is really the next step for them to take if they want to repair with you. And look, the same goes in working relationships, right? Like if we are working with difficult people, we can find resolve. We can find a way forward for ourselves that don't require the other person to change or acknowledge. Now, I'm not saying that you want to be in that work environment forever. I'm not saying that that's going to be a healthy route. But what I am saying is it is in your best interest to find the healing within yourself with those situations and those relationships before you move on to the next thing, because you're going to take that broken heart. You're going to take those triggers with you to the next thing. So yeah, let's work through it. Let's not go into 2026 with any of these outstanding relationship issues that are holding you back, that are making you beat yourself up, or that it's making you feel sad and bad because those relationships aren't what you wish they would be or could be. Maybe you're experiencing some anger with some of these relationship dynamics in your life. Or maybe you're just sad all the time. Maybe you're in grief about a relationship that went sour. Or maybe you're just kerfuffled or confused about the fact that you discovered the truth about a relationship and you stopped living in the illusion of what you thought it was or what you thought it could be. These are all heavy emotions. And if any of this is resonating, then I'm glad you're here. You can ask yourself, okay, you've got all these feelings. And what is it deep down that you're actually hoping for or expecting? Are you actually deep down waiting for an apology? Are you waiting for the other person to bring that topic up? Are you just waiting for your feelings to pass and telling yourself, time will heal all wounds, I'll get over it? Because let me tell you, if you said yes to any of the above, you are doing yourself a disservice. Finding your way through this situation is going to require you taking some action, because time does not heal all wounds. Let me tell you what heals all wounds. You actively taking action for your healing. That's what works. Time will pass, but if you're not taking action on finding resolve within yourself around these relationships, it's not just going to go away on its own. And if you feel like it's going away on its own, what that really means is you're burying shit and you're not looking at it and addressing it. And I'm sorry, I'm going to just tell you what I feel right now. And that is a chicken shit way of going through life. You want to just bury it and keep it moving. And what you don't realize is it's going to come up and hit you in the face when you least expect it and when you don't want it to show up. And you're going to end up hurting somebody else as a result. I've seen this time and time again. This is what happens when we don't do the healing work we need to do so that we can show up as the best version of ourselves in any given moment. So I'm giving you a little tough love because I want to shake you awake to the fact that burying and sweeping things under the rug about how you feel and the disappointment and the anger and the whatever it is, envy, jealousy, isn't going to be the thing that helps you break through in your career and in your life. Healing is an active process. All right. So I'm going to share some stories with you because I want you to know that I can't even count the number of people that relationships have ended. And I've had to move through that process myself for a couple of reasons. Number one, because I had given so much to those relationships before I even recognized they were over. They should have been over a long time ago. Before I recognized I was doing 80-90% of the giving and I wasn't receiving. And so a lot of times my pattern was like, I was in relationships a lot longer than served me. And it took something big for me to recognize, oh my gosh, this person is not meant for me anymore. And the way that I kind of look at that is like, my soul contract with that person is over. I can know that in my soul. And it doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. And it doesn't mean I need to process and heal from that. But my pattern is that I will let people stay in my life way longer than they deserve. I'm actively, right, making sure that I'm checking in with myself with my relationship so that doesn't happen, because I think that's not ideal, And in those relationships where I have confronted a person and said, hey, look, here's the thing, or here's the issue, or here's the challenge. And again, this is a previous version of myself, but most of the time, those people could not step up to the plate. And that was also an indication, right? This person isn't meant to be in my life anymore because they don't know how to do repair. They don't know how to take responsibility and accountability for their actions. And that's okay too. And look, I give love to those people. Healing our relationships is a process of self forgiveness. And it's also a process of loving the other person through who they are right now and what their limitations are right now. And this can even include family, right? I mean, relationships are relationships, you know, but I think forgiveness is one of those active things that you can do. And I'm not saying it happens overnight, but I've talked about it before on this podcast, which is the Ho'oponopono prayer. A dear friend of mine introduced me to this years ago. And it's actually, you can look it up, YouTube, like mantras and songs that just repeat this prayer over and over again. It comes from the Hawaiian culture and tradition. And it's really beautiful. So, like, if you don't know what else to do, if you are just feeling heartbroken, that's one action that you can take. A second thing that I'll offer you is to identify what it is you need right now with where things are in that given relationship and identify what you need that you are 100% in control of. So, is it expressing yourself? Do you need to express it either with the other person or in a letter that you write that never gets sent? Do you just need to express all the feelings that you have so that you can just hear yourself? And if you do write a letter, I would recommend reading it aloud so you can give yourself the gift of honoring how that person made you feel or how that situation made you feel. Maybe a need that you have is to allow yourself to feel the entirety of your emotions. And I know this might be scary, and I know you might not want to feel your emotions because you feel like it may never end. That sadness may never end. That heartbreak may never end. But I can guarantee you there is an end. There is a bottom of that. And what a gift it is to just give yourself permission to feel it all, because feeling it is how you move through it versus move around it. Feeling it is that ugly fucking cry. Feeling it is that sobbing. It is that screaming. It is that like just sacral, fuck, this sucks, like pardon my language. You know how I do on this podcast. I don't hold back. But yeah, just expressing and feeling the hurt, because that, my friends, is release. That feeling it is a release, even though it may not feel that way in the process. When you move through a chapter of that feeling, because it's not necessarily one and done. You might need to feel it a few times. When you are done with that, I think you will feel some sense of relief. On a scale of 1 to 100, it might be 5. It might be 75. It just depends. But give yourself the opportunity to feel that relief by doing that hard thing first. What you might need might also be talking to someone who can hold space for your talking out loud about the situation, who has the capacity for an empathetic ear. And you may know someone in your life like that. It might be a friend, it might be a family member, or maybe you don't. And that means you need to go find a therapist or a coach that has the space and knows how to hold it for you. You deserve to be able to process out loud if that is how you like to process. Not everybody can process by, writing it all out. Some people need to feel heard by another human being. And that is valid. And that is natural. It makes me think of, I had a friend once, and I used to tell her about a certain aspect of my life that was really hard, that I struggled with. And I never felt supported in that. And it was through my coach that I came to an understanding finally that she was so clouded by her own judgment about this type of relationship that I was struggling with that she couldn't accept or hold space that I had a different experience. And I finally realized, oh, that's not a safe space for me to express, because she's just going to tell me what she thinks I should do. That wasn't a possibility for me. That wasn't going to be a healthy way forward, the things that she suggested. So I say that to say sometimes even the people that you think can hold the space, it's okay to be discerning and recognize, gosh, yeah, it would be great if my friend could hold space for that, but you know what? She can't. And so that's not going to be the one. So let me think about who might be the one. And let's just be honest. When we're hurting so bad, it's because we cared deeply about this person, or we loved this person deeply, or this person felt like a linchpin in our life. And sometimes what can help us counter this anger and frustration and the grief is to remind ourselves that they are more than the hurt that they caused us, that they have their own beauty and their light. And that's why we actually were in relationship with them. And reminding ourselves of the pain that we know they deal with can help us soften just a little bit. If you like what you're hearing today, if it's helpful for you, then I am so glad. And I'm going to invite you to sign up for my newsletter because I publish lots of content to help you in times like these. All you have to do is visit the show notes and you'll find the link, or you can visit toscadimatteo.com/newsletter and sign up. I look forward to seeing you in your inbox. I think it's hard, right, to just really care about somebody and love them and at the same time be so hurt and disappointed. And when we're in that deep hurt and disappointment, we can just throw the rest out. And what I'm saying is part of the healing process, I think, is not about throwing the rest out, but of actually honoring that too. And I think we can find our own self forgiveness in that, because sometimes we can beat ourselves up. Oh man, how did I let them in my life? How did I let them do this to me? Oh, right. But wait, but there are also all of these other things. They're also multidimensional. They also have pain and hurt. So we have to give space for all of who they are and all of who we are in that journey of healing. I remember with one particular relationship that I had that I, I experienced a real deep betrayal. And part of how I got through those early hours and those early days of that betrayal was a whole lot of journaling and a whole lot of journaling about all that that person was to me, including all the hurt and the pain and also all the other stuff. And then that also led to me journaling about gratitude for what I had in my life and what was true in my life and what was good in my life. Because what I didn't want to do is get into a victim mentality or persecuting mentality, because those mentalities are only going to drag you down. And it's not to say don't have self compassion for yourself, for somebody who did something that hurt you. But it is to say, don't cross that line to be the victim, and don't cross that line to persecute the other person, because they are doing the best that they can too. If their best is hurtful or their best isn't good enough for you, that's okay, but they're still doing their best. So how can we hold space for that and say, you know what? I get to take my power back and I get to say what works for me. And I get to say what relationships I want to fight for or not fight for, what I want to hold on to and what I don't want to hold on to, what I want to let go of, and what I want to continue to process and work through. So I hope you just pause on this and say, okay, part of healing relationship challenges is to honor the whole person being yourself and the whole person being the other person, who they are not the actions that they take. They are more than the actions they take. They are so much more than that. Can we see that and hold space for that despite our pain and our hurt? That is how we are in the healing process. The other thing I'm going to bring up here in terms of actions you can take in your active healing is to look at your role in the dynamics. Because if I just take the example of betrayal that I've talked to you about with certain relationships in my life, I have to look at myself. I have to say, well, what was my role in allowing this to happen? And often, which I've explained already, right, is that I had this pattern of just sweeping things under the rug, of not standing up for myself, of being the one that gives 80, 90%. When I think about when things get to that betrayal place, well, it's because I wasn't honoring who this person was showing me that they are. And I was just taking breadcrumbs in that relationship. And what did it lead to? It led to a deep betrayal. So I have to take ownership and say, okay, what do I have to forgive myself for? What is the pattern that I need to break so that I put myself in these situations less? I did a whole series on relationships on this podcast early on. It starts with episode 46, How to Build Strong Relationships. It's a 3-part series. And I wouldn't be surprised if there are some common messages. And that's okay, because sometimes we need to hear things more than once, don't we? Look, I'll give you another example again, because I really don't want you to beat yourself up when you realize, oh man, I see now who this person is, and I can't believe I didn't see it before. This happens all the time. So much of it is part of our wounding and how we've gone into survival modes that aren't serving us anymore as a result of those early wounds. But so, for example, a close friend of mine, she once said to me, she was dating and she would fill me in on some of these dates. And she once said to me, she wasn't going to go on a second date with the guy because he was diabetic and she didn't want to take care of him for the rest of his life. Now, if you don't know, I'm a type 1 diabetic, and like, this comment that she made did not land well with me. Like, what the fuck does that mean? Like, when I married my husband, he knew about this chronic illness. I'm just saying, right? It's a shitty thing to say, especially a shitty thing to say to a friend who has that disease, who you're saying, well, I don't want to be in a relationship with somebody with that. But here's the thing. I allowed that comment to slide versus stand up and say, that's really shitty. And what was going on is she was showing me who she was. She was showing me the truth of the way her mind thinks and how she moves through life. And that was not the only indication. There was a lot of other things about how she treated other people that I found out about and I knew about. And I accepted that in my life. And so when there was a big betrayal on her part, I was like, wow, I shouldn't be surprised. I felt betrayed in the past, but I didn't really allow myself to feel betrayed. I just put it under the rug. And that's my bad. So I think we have to be honest about the role that we play, not to beat ourselves up, but to be able to forgive ourselves, to be able to honor our growth, and to be able to honor, what? Yeah, that previous version of me put up with that. And now I'm a changed person. And the new version of me is not going to be okay with whatever that is. So part and parcel to that process is to honor what you do deserve and what you do want in relationships. That is part of the healing. So for example, if somebody really hurt you and they did something mean to you, use that as a learning opportunity for yourself to say, you know what? I can now see what it is that is a standard for me in relationships. I can now see what I will be demanding for people who get to have the privilege of being in my orbit. And so you can look at those things that were hurtful and flip that around and say, what does this mean that I value in my relationships? What does this mean that my expectations are in my relationships? And that is a beautiful way of finding the silver lining in the pain. It's a beautiful way to see the light in the wound, because you can move forward with that light and leave that wound behind and allow it to scab over so it doesn't hurt anymore. I think I talked about it before, but I just want to mention it again, that part of the healing journey and taking an active role in that is finding acceptance for who that person is right now and finding acceptance for what it is they cannot give you. And you can choose that when you find that acceptance, do you want them to still be in your life and you move through that acceptance each time you engage, perhaps? Or is it about finding acceptance and saying, but I don't want that in my life? And that can be really difficult decision to make, especially when it comes to family relationships and work relationships, right? It can be difficult to say, I accept that my boss is this way, that my boss doesn't make me feel seen or heard, or that my boss makes me feel like I'm not good enough. It can be hard to say, I accept that this is who my boss is. And I don't want to be in a work environment where I have to deal with a boss like this, because that then requires you to take some more actions, right? To honor what it is that you want and what your standards are. So it can be difficult all around. So find some grace for yourself. And you know what? It's acceptance isn't a matter of, well, I can just tell myself this is who they are. And no, man, like it takes some meditation work. It takes some long walks, in nature. It takes some journaling and really understanding what is it that you're accepting about what this person is capable of and not capable of, where they're willing to go and where they're not willing to go with you or with themselves for that matter. Finding acceptance for others. Woo! That is deep work. It's tough work and it's freaking beautiful work. It's what helps us build our empathy skills. It's what helps us find more acceptance for ourselves. Because if you are listening to this and you're just like, nope, 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 I cannot accept that this is who the person is, then let me tell you, you probably have a hard time accepting who you are on some level, in some dynamic or some facet. So you can also ask yourself, what is it that I cannot accept about myself, that I have resistance about myself, that maybe needs healing first and foremost? Oh Lord, I know it's a heavy topic, but I'm so glad that you're sticking with me because it's important and this is not meant to be easy. And if you need to listen to this a few times, please do. I want you to recognize that when you accept who people are, it is not to say that you have to accept not having what you want in your life. That is not what I'm saying. What I want you to recognize is that what you need in your relationships, what you want from your relationships is valid and it's your birthright and it is okay to want those things. And you just might need to find those things from someone who you don't know yet. So yeah, maybe you have to accept that your friend can't hold space for a certain pain in your life, but you deserve to be supported and heard and held for that pain in your life. And so recognizing you need that and you want that is the first step to then calling it in and finding it and seeking it out. But yeah, there might be a gap for a little while. You might be without it for a little while. You might need to supply it for yourself for a little while. But know that when you have that intention and when you take those actions against those intentions, it will happen. And you will find the right relationships and you will find the relationships that feel supportive and you will find the relationships that you can heal with, because that's how we heal relationships. We heal it, yes, with ourselves and processing our emotions and what we're experiencing ourselves, but we also heal it with other people that can help us heal. And I've said this before. I married the man that helps me heal my relationship wounds. And it's a beautiful thing. And it doesn't mean it's the easiest thing, you know, but it is the path towards my healing. And I am so grateful for it. Part of healing without the other person involved is to also recognize that our body, our nervous system at the cellular level also needs some support and recognition. And if you've listened to this podcast, you have probably heard that I've done a lot of somatic work in my life. Now, somatic work is basically working on what's trapped in your body. So that can include things like yoga. It can include things like Reiki. It can include things like craniosacral therapy. It can include breath work. There's a million modalities out there. And so I offer to you, especially if you get the hairs at the back of your neck going right now, that maybe what is a path forward for your healing is somatic work and getting out of your head with it and getting out of the mind games and getting out of the mantras, but your body just needs some focus. So feel free to reach out, because if I can support you in identifying what modality might be of service to you, I'm happy to do that. And that might include, I had a client at one point where I even mentioned like rage rooms. There are places where you can just rage out, right, and throw the plates. And that is release, and that can be very healing. So there's just a lot out there and a lot to explore. And I highly recommend that if you are just feeling like you're having a really hard time healing through some of the unresolved history you have with relationships. And here's the last piece of advice I would give is sometimes, we just care deeply about the other person and we wish that they could hear us, but they can't. They can't hear us. They can't hear our pain. They can't hear our desires. They can't hear our requests. They can't address our needs. And so sometimes when that happens, what we can do is have a conversation with their higher self, with that version of themselves that can hear you, with that version of themselves that can know that you deeply love them and care about them. And that can be while you're sitting, in meditation and you're saying it to yourself. You can have a picture of them in your mind or a picture of them on your altar or on your dashboard, your windowsill, whatever. And you're just having a conversation with the highest version of who they are. And that can make you feel like you're taking action from a loving place, doing what you can, especially when you know that person just can't receive what you have to say, but you really wish that they could. I've used this myself and I've absolutely recommended it to a number of clients that struggle with really wanting the other person to hear, because this is a beautiful way to say, you know what? I did everything I could. I did everything I could. And that's an energetic thing. It's an energetic thing. One of the things I also want to leave you with in your relationship healing journey is to ask yourself, do you miss the person or do you miss the idea of who you wish that person could be for you? Another question is, are you in the relationship of the potential of that person versus being in relationship with who they are being now? Because when we're in relationship with the potential of someone, we're actually not in relationship with who they are showing us they are right now. And this is the difference between living in relationships that are in truth versus living in relationships that are an illusion. And what happens is when we get these fractures in relationships, sometimes we realize, oh gosh, I was in a relationship with an illusion and not the truth. And that's hard and that hurts. But also, what a beautiful gift to see the truth, because from that place of knowing the truth, you can choose better for yourself. You can choose better for them. And by that, I mean, you can honor that what's in your highest good will also be in the highest good of those other people. So I hope that you have taken something away from this conversation with you that you can go take action on. Go be an active participant in your healing. And I know amazing things, magical things await for you on that other side. For you, for sure, because you are deciding that you're going to show up for yourself. You're going to give grace to yourself, and you're going to give grace to others in the process of acceptance and healing and moving through, so that you can find what is truly for you, and so that you can be in healthy relationships that don't have the baggage on your back with it. Because when you have the baggage of the relationship on your back, it's not going to be the best possible relationship that you can have. And if you really want to do some deep relationship work, I am here for it. You can find me at coachtosca.com. That's coachtosca.com. You can reach out to me. You can set up an exploratory call. You can email me. There's links in the show notes. This is the work that I do, whether it's one-on-one, whether it's in a team setting, or whether it's from a stage and giving a keynote. I am here to help you show up in the best version of yourself and heal the wounds of your life and your unresolved history and stop the practice of just putting Band-Aids on it. I'm here to help you live a freer life one with more peace and ease in your heart, one with less inner conflict and less conflict with others. So I'm so glad that you are here. I'm so glad that you tuned in. And I am just wishing you the most magical day. Be kind to yourself. Drink a lot of water. This is big topics. And you may have already moved through some energy just by listening to this. And that is a good thing. If the tears were flowing, good. It's release. Let it be. Take care of yourself. I love you so much. And thanks for coming to the Unlock Lab. I'll see you next time.